Listen to me. If there was a wise man who would ever think of this, they would say in order to be superior to the man, you've got to be the man. For I am the man himself.
What is going on, guys? This is the Club of the Man 1993. We're back here for, I believe, episode number 12. The 12th WWE 24 documentary that's available through the WWE Network. I believe this is number 12, I think it is. And this one is called Kurt Angle Homecoming. It focuses on the story of Kurt Angle returning back to WWE when he got inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2017, and his journey, throughout his whole career, and his journey back to the company, his struggles with addiction that he dealt with. He had to go to rehab. It basically took his second wife threatening to leave him with the kids because it just wasn't safe for them, for him to finally be able to work even harder towards getting clean. Realizing, of course, what was more important, his family, and not so much his career, that he was putting a lot of pressure on himself to make sure he was always healthy for. Because it unfortunately led to several severe issues, even though during that time, as he mentioned, he was basically wrestling every single wrestling match like it was his last. But then, several broken necks. He wrestled at WrestleMania with a broken neck. And, of course, we all know he won an Olympic gold medal with a broken freaking neck. He had a career in WWE, a career in TNA, and he came back and was a WWE Hall of Famer in 2017. Yeah, we all know when he briefly wrestled for those last 2 years of his career in WWE, it didn't go well, but this documentary didn't talk about that, and we're not going to talk about it. But, yeah, born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Same hometown as me. Of course, saw several shots that were very close and very similar to the things that, of course, I have definitely witnessed here. But yeah, Kurt was an athlete growing up. His father, unfortunately, died young when he was 16 years old in a construction accident. So that definitely had an effect on him. I believe he said all of his brothers and himself, of course, did get into amateur wrestling. And keep this in mind, too. There's athletes who say that, you gotta start when you're like 6 and let it grow up with you and whatnot. Kurt didn't have the best start to his amateur wrestling career as a kid. I think he mentioned in his first season, he went 2-14. Yeah, 2-14, and now he's a WWE Hall of Famer. So it shows that even if you go off to a slow start, there is still hope for you. Kurt, though, eventually would work his way into the Olympics. And we all know, again, he won a gold medal in 1996 with, again, a broken neck. I think I don't understand the point system for amateur wrestling. I think he was trying to avoid, hitting the mat or something like that. So I guess he stuck his head out to avoid his body from rolling on the mat or something to avoid points. So, but I think because of that, he broke his neck. Yet he finished, and I think if I'm not mistaken, that was the semifinals. He, of course, would go on to the finals and win, and then, of course, get his neck healed and whatnot after that, taken care of and such. I can't remember if he had surgery on or not at that time. I know there was a time later on when he went on a string of several broken necks, and the last time they're like, we can't operate anymore. So he had to let his neck heal rather than get operated on. But he won that gold medal. I believe they said he was offered a 10-year contract from WWE, but he kind of laughed it off from what it sounded like. And then that deal wasn't there. A couple years later, he's like, you know what? I'll give this a shot. and he basically had to start everybody else through developmental and such. Now, Kurt also mentioned he wasn't really a fan of professional wrestling, of the scripted stuff, but he eventually got the hang of it, and like everything else, he was determined to be the absolute best from it. This highlighted a lot that Kurt was definitely one of Vince McMahon's prized students. Basically, he's one person that Vince put a lot of time into Kurt Angle, even during his darkest times as well, and of course after he left WWE in 2006 and went to TNA for a bit. And of course we did see that most of the time throughout it was basically it started. Like I said, all these 24 specials start at a certain day, and then it's kind of you go back in time. How do we get up to this day? They did throughout this also show when he first went to WWE headquarters for the first time in 11 years. He was nervous about seeing Vince for the first time in 11 years, and he's hoping he's proud of him. The first person he saw that broke the ice was Stephanie McMahon, and then he saw Triple H. And then he went to see Vince. And when he went into Vince's office, gave him a hug, Vince told the camera, out, 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 and take the microphone off. So they had a private chat when he came back. But yeah, just to continue on with the backstory, they kind of went a little out of order, some backstory and then, something more current and whatnot. To continue on his backstory, he went to the Olympics, and again, he originally denied, but then he eventually would get into WWE and get the hang of it. And I believe he won his first world title from The Rock, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I think he won the world title a couple of times before he got to the big year, which the year that looked like he was about to be that big headliner for WrestleMania was 2003. Unfortunately, that's where things started going south for Kurt. Well, when he was wrestling, it was not. But personal and emotional and mental stability, this is where things kind of start going south for Kurt. Because not too long before his WrestleMania match with Brock Lesnar, he had broken his neck in a tag match. And years later, when Cody Rhodes tore his pec completely off the bone, he demanded them not to cancel his Hell in a Cell match. He wanted to be at WrestleMania, and he wanted to wrestle Brock. Of course, that is also the same WrestleMania where Brock Lesnar did that botched shooting star press that didn't work out too well. But, Vince wasn't a fan of it, but he let him do it, and he dropped the title to Brock, and he would take a little time off to have surgery to get his neck healed. He came back. 6 months later, same thing happened again. Broke his neck yet again. I know at the following year's WrestleMania, he wrestled Eddie Guerrero in a fantastic match. That, like he said, this is around the time where Kurt knew his injuries were catching up to him. And he basically said he wrestled every single match like it was his last. Because that includes during this time as well, because it was 2005? I think it was 2005. When it was WrestleMania 21, and he wrestled still one of my personal favorite matches I've ever watched. Again, I wasn't watching live at the time, but I watched all the WrestleManias. It was a match that made me really blown away. Was his match with Shawn Michaels WrestleMania 21. Still, in my opinion, one of the best matches ever. That was a masterpiece. And when I met Kurt in 2018, I mentioned how much I loved that match, and he told me, he goes, "Oh, I really gave it to Shawn." Nice guy, by the way, when I met him in 2018. It was it was a pleasure to meet him for sure at the World of Wheels convention. So the rewind for a second, something I did miss talking about. Vince brought him in as a heel. And Kurt was he thought he would be going and being some big Olympic hero and whatnot. He goes, no, you saying you're an Olympic gold medalist is going to make people turn on you. And he was right. It did make people turn on him, and he just fell into the role as this heel Olympic gold medalist, and it worked really well to his benefit. Even the "you suck" chants, whatnot, became popular. Even he was a baby face, he kept the "you suck" chants going because he knew that was the reactions people were going to get for him. Even when he came back as SmackDown general manager briefly, whenever he broke his neck again, one of the times, he said, I don't care about the you suck chance. It's just great to be back here, basically. And he just embraced it pretty much. But the reason why, it was a down period of him, even though he was having some of the best matches of his career when he came back, was because he was pushing himself trying to get back. And that's when his addiction to painkillers started to kick in a lot. And he started having some problems. It led to him and Vince having like a fallout. And he left the company in 2006. He would go on to TNA 6 months later, which we had an interview with Dixie Carter, and it still cracks me up because I remember back during that time, it was 2017, 2018 when this documentary came out. That's when TNA was at its worst, and Dixie Carter was like really not liked, and it was kind of a laughingstock to see Dixie Carter in this documentary. But of course, she was emphasizing how Kurt needed to realize that, there's more things more important to him than wrestling. Like, as soon as he was injured, he was, like, if it was at the Kurt Angle, he'd be wrestling the next day. But he was literally just, like, doing it, basically just in an unhealthy way, tearing himself down, trying to get back to the ring as soon as possible. Because, he wanted to be the finance guy who, provided for his family. But, again, he was just putting his own health. He was not putting his own health before anything else. And it got so bad that he got into drinking. I think he got several DUIs. He did get divorced. He married a second wife, Juliana or whatever. I can't remember what his second wife's name is. But there was one night he even mentioned something about where he was that drunk that he actually had shoved like 25 painkillers and swallowed it. How did he not die from that? That is scary to hear. And then, of course, like I said, I believe he had hit rock bottom when his second wife basically threatened to leave him with his kids. And I think that's when, he really thought, yeah, I gotta do something now before anything happens. They did, of course, show him going to visit his parents' grave. I think he said that he comes there about 10 times a year, just reflects on everything that's happened to him. And he mentioned something like, I was once a role model 20 years ago, now I'm just a big drug addict or whatnot. But eventually, he did get clean. And, he's just living a much more happier and healthier lifestyle. And again, it eventually led to him getting inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2017. And he was brought back to the company for the first time in 11 years. And like I said, it showed him reuniting with, Vince and everything. 2 weeks before WrestleMania, he got to actually go to, Raw, I think it was. Go backstage, see some people he hadn't seen for a while. AJ Styles, Mickie James. Many other people who he even met that he got introduced to for the first time, which was awesome to see as well. And then came his Hall of Fame speech day. John Cena did induct him. I remember one thing I was sour about that night when I watched it was I missed Kurt Angle's first entrance in 11 years live because my internet crapped out and I missed it. And I was so mad. But I really did enjoy Kurt's Hall of Fame speech when he had it. He started off with the basic theme, of course, besides the fact that it's great to be home. And he mentioned how, he's here to give some advice. The one thing that he really emphasized was to take chances. And he took a ton of chances. He did a lot of things that he didn't, wasn't totally for. But Vince was like, do them. And, of course, I know I've ripped on Vince for, doing some very crappy stuff. But Kurt Angle made it work. He even brought a cowboy hat out when he had that segment years ago with Stone Cold Steve Austin. I can't remember who else it was. But he said, do you really think I wanted to wear this? But I did because I knew it was entertaining. And all this other crazy stuff he did that was entertaining. He even, of course, sung the I'm Just a Sexy Kurt song again, which was just priceless and whatnot. And all the other jokes. Like I said, it was a very heartfelt homecoming, especially knowing what he had been through, leaving the company, then coming back and whatnot. It was just a fantastic speech. And he thanked his children. He thanked, of course, his wife, as she basically helped him save his own life and whatnot, and just everybody else. and it was a great, homecoming for him. And he eventually basically was given, the opportunity. He was told he would always have a job with the company. Yeah, I believe he got furloughed for a little bit in 2020 whenever the pandemic happened. But I think he still does something backstage now. I'm not sure if he still does or not. But I know he's been kind of like in and out. But of course he did. We all know the show ended with showing that he did eventually, the night of WrestleMania 33, be announced as the new Raw general manager. I still remember that night he had two lines that cracked me up. Was the first one was when Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn went to Raw looking for jobs because they were fired because they lost their match against Shane McMahon and Daniel Bryan. And Kurt goes, "Well, my tag team is full, but I hear that TNA is hiring." And then I also later that night, Enzo and Cass did the whole SAWFT thing, and when they walk away, Kurt goes, "That's not how you spell soft." But we all know what happened with that and how his last 2 years went. I'm not going to get into it. We all know that they weren't the best, but it was great to see Kurt come back. Like I said, for a late bloomer fan like me, I knew who Kurt Angle was, but I never got to watch him wrestle. Yes, they weren't his best matches. I mean, heck, his best match back when he came back was probably that mixed tag he had when he teamed up with Ronda at WrestleMania 34. And the sad part was he was probably the weakest part of that match. But he's a great man. I met him once. Well-deserved Hall of Fame. And this was another great documentary to watch. A great, example of, who Kurt Angle was and him battling back from his addictions and just working hard and whatnot. And it's been great to have him home since. So guys, that's my review of W24's Kurt Angle Homecoming. I believe the next one, number 13, is on Goldberg and his return to WWE in 2016 and 2017 and the run he had. I believe that goes up to after he dropped the title to Brock at WrestleMania 33. So that will be next. I'll see you guys then. What are your thoughts on the Kurt Angle Homecoming 24 special? Leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. Be sure also, as always, to slap a like on the video and subscribe for more content on my channel. Follow me on Twitter as well, The Club of the Man 93. You may also follow me on TikTok and Instagram at The Club of the Man 1993. And until then, guys, I'll check it out. I'll catch y'all later. Have a great rest of your night. And do not forget, in order to be superior to the man, you've got to be the man. And for I am the man himself. And that is not just the pay, my friends. That is a fact of life. Yeah!